All right. Picking up on our enneagram class. Appreciate everyone who was able to help out with the Jesus party last week. I think it went really well. We had some fun karaoke. Some of the ladies there just really got in, and they could sing. There were a couple ladies. One didn't want to be on camera, but because Bailey was taking a little video, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun. So thank you for helping out with that. So as we talk more about the Enneagram, always wanting to give a bit of a biblical perspective about our thoughts. And so today I'm taking a passage from the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 6, if you want to look at it. It's a little bit of an enigmatic sort of statement by Jesus. I think for a long time I had no idea what it meant. I remember some of our Tanzanian church leaders pointing this passage out and asking me, what did it mean? I didn't know really what to tell them. I kind of stumbled around. I don't know. So this is Matthew chapter 6, 22 and 23. But I think it really pertains to what we're talking about with the Enneagram. So here's Matthew 6, 22, 23. The eye is the lamp of the body. So then if your eye is clear, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light that is in you is darkness, how great is the darkness? Now, what Jesus is saying, I think, is kind of a general reality truth about the way things are and life and our own experience. And it can therefore apply in a lot of different situations. But I think it applies in this circumstance of looking at the Enneagram, because what we're saying is the Enneagram is all about being a tool for self-awareness. And if Jesus is saying anything in this passage, he's saying you've got to have clear eyes. You've got to be able to see clearly for there to be light in you. And if your vision is obscured, well, what will be in you will be a result of that obscured vision. So it applies to the Enneagram. What we're trying to do is have a clearer vision of ourselves, what makes us tick, how we think, how we make choices, kind of the deep, basic motivation of our own life. The more I can see that, I think Jesus would say, yeah, your eyes are clear and light comes into you. Right? You live more in light because you can see more clearly. And one of those fundamental things is the need to see ourselves. I seem to have lost my controlling. Let's see if I can get it back.
I'll add something. I think it's about reality too. Like, just reality is reality, whether I see clearly or not. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I think this is one of those tools to help me see myself more clearly and see reality more clearly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do, is to see what is, what is the case. And even when it's a little uncomfortable. Because when we understand ourselves better, there's always some aspect to self-understanding that's a little disappointing. Like, I kind of knew some of these good things, but I kind of didn't want to hear that. Yeah. But that self-understanding opens up possibilities. My Enneagram thought for today that was in my email says it this way. Until we allow whatever is true, the things that trouble us will never change, but only be suppressed. In other words, I've got to allow whatever is true to actually be the case. I have to accept it. Or they're saying the things that trouble us will never change, but only be suppressed. Like, I'll just deny it, pretend like, no, that's not a problem, and it will continue to be a problem. The thought goes on to say, we are here to contemplate what we've been afraid of, what we ran away from. It's liberating. Because the only way we grow is through acknowledging and accepting what is true. Insofar as we can stay with the truth, everything else begins to melt. maybe like Jesus said, and the truth will set you free. Right?
Yep.
It's not only the truth. I mean, that's just a general principle. The truth about myself sets me free with respect to myself. The truth about God sets me free with respect to God, right? So it's the same idea, right? This is a tool. It's for self-awareness. Although it can be somewhat disturbing at times, it's liberating. Because once we know, we can make other choices. Right? This enneagram is not predictive of our behavior. Ignorance is predictive of behavior. Right? If I'm ignorant, it is absolutely certain what I will do. I will do things in continuance with that ignorance. But once I have knowledge, now I may not do what I've always been doing, because now I know what I've always been doing. I see the pattern, and see, it opens up the opportunity to do something new, something different. That's why we need to look at this as liberating, as positive, as exciting, even if we kind of don't feel that way. So, yes.
That's fine. Had a conversation with Edwina about this. That not only is the self-knowledge so helpful, but understanding your partner. So instead of saying, why did she do this, and she must be this kind of thing, then you have this understanding of why that's happening.
Yeah, so and because there is no really self-understanding apart from all our relationships, right? I do not understand myself in isolation as if I'm an autonomous, self-contained, self-composed entity. No, there's the reason I'm understanding myself is to be more helpful, more understanding in terms of all my relationships. And I am a composite of my relationships. The ones that are difficult as well as the ones that are nurturing, right? Very much who I am. So, yeah, that's a part of it. So here's, real briefly, we've looked at, Wesley got us started with these kind of just three general triads of how the 9 different personality types fall into 3 kind of major groupings. We talked about the 9 different personality types, and last time went through and kind of got an overview of each type. Remember, this is about motivation, not behavior. Now, obviously, there are behaviors that are associated with each type of personality, but that's why this is not restrictive. If I find out, well, you know what, I'm a 7, and so that means I will always have certain behaviors. No, it means I'll always have certain motivations. And the more I understand what it means to be a 7, the more I can then adopt other behaviors when they're helpful, right? So today we're going to be talking about movement within the enneagram, right? Now, it's not the kind of movement where, you know what, I'm a 5 and I'm going to move and become a 3. The theory behind it is, no, your basic motivations, which were formed in childhood, are probably not going to change. But we're not talking about behavior. I mean, I could act more, I could take on some of the best behaviors of 3s and some of the best behaviors of 2s. Because I am a 5, doesn't mean I can't be helpful like a 2. It just means my motivations are often a little bit different, but the things that we might associate as behaviors, they're all open to me. And so part of what we want to do is take the positive behaviors of all the different personality types and avoid all the negative behaviors of all the different personality types. Ours in particular, but even others, right? So there is some movement, not that you change your basic personality, but it's not static. And so the first way we're going to look at movement is this idea of wings. And they talk about this in the Enneagram. You're a certain number and you have a wing, which means that the 2 numbers adjacent to yours, the 2 personality types adjacent to yours, are also ones you have great affinity with. And therefore, you will have some of the characteristics of both of those two adjacent personality types. And you will tend to lean more towards one of them than the other. Now, what I've heard people saying in terms of the theory is, and you could actually shift. So I've drawn it out for a 9, the peacemaker. Well, a 9 could lean more towards the 8, but at a different point in life, actually be not a 9-wing 8, but become a 9-wing 1. But that is, you're not moving your basic personality type, but you might lean more towards one side or the other. Mm-hmm. But you're going to find certain aspects of either personality on either side of you as, yeah, that's part of me too, right? So having a particular number, again, isn't just, say, you're just one of 9 and you're not related to the others. Oh, no, you're first of all related to each of the ones beside you. And that's the language they use is, well, I'm a 5-wing 6, or I'm a 3-wing 2. That's how people talk about it. So that, okay, so thoughts or things maybe y'all have encountered when talking about this part of it that you want to add, or questions?
What happens when you are equally strong, when your wing and another number are equally powerful, strong?
Well, depending on what that number is, it may pertain to the next part we're going to talk about, is all these lines. Because these lines aren't just there to be decorative, right? Uh-huh. The circle is the fact that you are, again, this isn't just like a decorative image. The circle indicates that there is a line connecting you to each personality on either side of you, right? But all these central lines also connect up, and we're going to get to the meaning of those. So depending on what it is, it might be one that there's a line drawn from yours to that other one. And that's, again, an indication of a strong connection. Basically, what you're going to find out, what we're going to look at this morning, is you're one number, and you have strong connections to 4 of the other 8, right? So there's total of 9. You're 1, and you have strong connections to 4 more. So 5 of the 9 numbers are very much directly related to your personality. That's why this is not a very limiting sort of thing, like you're either this or you're that. That's why I love about this, it's so nuanced. And it doesn't mean you're not connected to the other 4. It just means there's 4 that you're strongly connected with, but again, the other 4, you're going to have some connection with. And I think as we mature, as we get more mature in ourselves, we will start to take on not only the positive aspects of certain numbers that we're directly related to, but we can start taking on the positive aspects of all the numbers, right? For me to learn as a 5, because my basic problem can be greed, not greedy so much for material things, but greedy for knowledge, because I think I can conquer the world if I can just know it, right? Because what I'm afraid of is being, incapable. And so I'm going to conquer that fear by trying to know everything. Well, but I could become as helpful as the 2s are often known as being, right? Right? So again, it's not limiting. Any other thoughts, comments on wings? So that's the first relationship.
Greg, I took the test that you
Yeah.
that you gave, but it doesn't have like any numbers or relative to it. It's just strictly the pies, what size they are. And so
Right.
some are really close and some are a little bit bigger or whatever.
Right.
So are there other tests where, like you're saying you're a 5 for sure. It's a point of 100 and you have 70% 5? Or
Well, I should throw up my diagram. My 5 wedge is the biggest wedge.
Yeah,
But the other ones are big too.
Than the rest, or
And a lot of the tests, I like the ones that don't just say, this is what you are. I like the ones that say, this is kind of how you come out in some of these numbers. You could be one of these 2 or 3 numbers. Why don't you think about it, right? Because again, a test can't get to my motivations. All the questions are probing my motivations, but I may, how I read the question, answer it not as they're intending to ask it, because I perceive the question differently. So, as I always say in the beginning, taking the test is not a surefire thing. The test may give you an indication, then go read a description and especially when it talks about what maybe in your early childhood might have been some of the patterns that, and if that starts to ring true, you're probably honing in, right? But yeah, I like that one that gives you wedges. My 5 is the biggest wedge of the pie, but others are significant, and the 4 is pretty significant adjacent. The 6 not so much. So I'm a wing 4.
That's funny.
What did you say?
What'd you say?
I told him if you bought the report, you get the numbers.
Oh yeah. No, you don't have to buy the report. Nah.
I like the books that suggest that you try one out and kind of live with it
Yeah.
and see if it really fits, and then explore. It's not.
Yeah. It's not a simple task. Sometimes people say, well, I was this and then I became that. Probably they thought they were that, and then as they continue to know themselves better, they realize, no, I'm actually a different personality type. More than us changing our personality types, sometimes the journey to finding our personality type is a little bit of a longer process, right?
Yeah.
And certain personality types have more trouble finding out who they are, right? Because 9s can have that problem because they can tend to be people pleasing, and therefore it's like, who do you want me to be, right? I'm having trouble deciding who I am because I'm just trying to be who you want me to be, right?
Great example. I was in class a couple months ago, or maybe 2 months ago, and we all kind of went around kind of trying to guess where everyone lands. Everyone thought I was a 5. And I think it's because I know how to fit those shoes. I mean, I was in school, I know how to show up in those classroom settings and be a student and sound like a
5.
A 5. So I think that's a great example.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect example, yeah. So by your behavior in an academic setting, they're all thinking he's just a 5, this intellectual. But that's not where Wesley is, but he knows how to perform that way. See, this is where it's not real simple, but I think that's a positive thing, right? Because again, we're talking about the complex nature of our own inner life. That can't be found out real quickly, or no one else can dissect that. It's even hard for me to ferret that out.
I think one of the ways that I help identify myself is that I notice my sin that would keep cropping up, and begin to pay attention to that. What was some of the motivation, some of the natural tendency to sin in a particular way.
Yeah, and see, for me, and for some people that might work. For me, it wouldn't have, because I'm supposed to struggle with greed, and I would have never thought because I would have never thought just wanting to know something is being greedy, because I like to share what I know. So see, that wouldn't, in my case, it wouldn't help me at all. Yeah. I take convincing to I have to struggle to actually believe that yes, you have a tendency to be greedy, because I'm thinking no, I don't. So
it's a different.
Yeah.
So,
but there's a lot of for some people, that might be a terrific avenue, right? When Paula Jones did this years ago, and she had gone and taken a course under Hudson, who's the guy I guess at Harvard, and the way she presented that I realized was me to a T. She said, 5s, they're the kind of people that, if they start to go to the mailbox, but there's a neighbor outside, they won't go out because they don't want to engage in the conversation. And I thought, that's me. I mean, it'd be great if but it's like I can avoid human contact. Yeah. Now, I can also perform in a way of where human contact's important, and it's not that I hate it, but there's a part of me that could always withdraw from conversation, especially with people I don't know well. And when she said that, I thought, yeah, that's me. I've actually done that on numerous occasions. It's like, oop, turn around, wait till they go, then I'll go, not just with mailbox, other things, right? So, yeah, something will nail you and you're like, yes, this is me. Okay.
So kind of a question along that lines that, when I read, so the second, link was then your explanation, and it said like the 3 positive qualities become 3 neutral qualities, and the 3, you don't want to read those.
Yeah, the ones that make you feel bad.
And guess where I'm just trying to think of the end in mind here, I certainly know whatever my tendencies are that I've tried, I didn't know about enneagram, I guess didn't really follow up on it after Paul presented it. But, I do know I'm trying to eliminate the negatives, the three. So, and you were saying like it's all interconnected, so if we're moving towards Christ and we're trying to be a better person, are you saying you would eventually maybe take the three positives, or, I mean, I'm sure there's more than three, but I'm just saying in this explanation that you linked us to, you know, yeah, if you read the positives of all nine, you sit there and go, well, that would be a pretty good person.
Yeah.
You know, that's doing that.
They're virtues, yeah.
Is that our goal?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're all the positives, all 9 personality types are virtues, right? And I do want to learn to be stronger in what is virtuous. You know, in the classic sense, there's virtues versus vices. We all have vices, and we all have the potential for certain virtues. So I'm trying to eliminate the vices in my life, because just because that's a part of my personality doesn't mean I'm bound and have to act out that way. In my case, I don't have to be a recluse, right? But I could be an eccentric recluse, right? But I don't have to be. It's not saying I'm doomed to that fate. It's saying, be careful. Too much avoiding other people and staying in your house is not a good thing. You got to push yourself sometimes to get out and talk to others, right? And even if that's not your most comfortable mode of being, right? So we're not doomed. So yeah, we can eliminate and say, I do not want to live those out. I always know they're present and possibilities, but being aware of that, I know that not to fall into that ditch, and I'm emphasizing the positives, and I'm trying to draw those virtuous things from others. Okay, well, let's look at the next part, which will expand the movement aspect to all of this. So I'm going to explain the inner lines. So you're related to the 2 on either side, and I'm doing this based on my own personality, the 5, the investigator. There are less flattering terms to use for 5s. You know, the eggheads or something. You know, but so there's 2 lines running from the 5 to 2 other numbers. And I've put arrows on them because think of the red arrow as where I don't want to go, and the green arrow of where I do want to go. Now, what this means is I have a tendency as a 5 that if I am not doing well spiritually, mentally, if I'm stressed, I can start taking on the red direction, which is the worst aspects of the 7. Not the best aspects, the worst. And 7s at their worst are busy, 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 but they're totally scattered. Now, 7s are very energetic people who have they have a packed calendar, and they love to overpack it. They just love to do. And the but the problem for a 7 is they could become someone who, with a lot of doing and none of it's focused, none of it's meaningful, right? And I have a tendency as a 5, I'm connected not only to the 6 and the 4 adjacent to me. In my case, I'm also connected to the 7, but only in the tendency in my ill health spiritually to take on the worst characteristics of the 7. But the green arrow is when I'm really doing well as a 5, I take on the best characteristics of the 8 that some would call the natural leader, right? So basically it's telling me as a 5, and my decision-making, my motivational processes, if I'm doing well, I can become a natural leader, the best aspects of a natural leader. When I'm not doing well, I'm not leading anything or anyone. I'm just scattered and doing a lot of stuff without focus, right? So I'm connected. I'm already, there's lines connecting me to 4 other personality types. Doesn't mean I have no connection at all to 9s and 1s and 2s and 3s, but my strongest connections are, in my case, to all the ones on my half of the circle. but not all of the lines obviously run that way. Sometimes your connection is not to so much to, the ones that are all contiguous, adjacent to one another.
How do you know which ones of your arrows are positive and negative?
Well, that's what I'm going to show you in just a second.
The peacemaker, for instance, goes to the loyalist, and then the performer. It's all a triangle. You see that? And then the one goes out to the enthusiastic, and you see how it's kind of going out.
Yeah, but
Trees want to know which ones are positive.
yeah, but let me show you that. But let's deepen the drama, right? So this line between me and the 7 is negative for me, but positive for the 7. That's why when they draw the diagram, they don't put arrows. Now, sometimes you'll see the arrows, but then they'll have to tell which way is the arrow. Did they do the diagram with the arrows of positive growth or negative, reverting to worse behaviors? So I like the diagram without any arrows, but you have to learn where your arrows go. So now, isn't this ironic? When I'm not doing well, I take on the worst aspects of a 7. But when a 7 is doing well, the 7 takes on the best aspects of a 5.
Yeah.
It's a two-way street. It's traveling in both directions on that line. So a 7 who's busy, when they're doing well, they can take on the insightfulness of a 5 who kind of sees the bigger picture. Well, you got a highly energetic, busy person who can, through all that energy, be showing us a bigger picture with insight. That could be a really helpful person, right? See, that's why every personality has its way of really shining and contributing a lot to community and to relationships. So it's a two-way street. That makes sense? So obviously the other arrow for me is to the 8, which is for me positive, but for the 8 negative. The natural leader, if not doing well, might become, the recluse, right? Like the worst aspect that I could be is the cut off from all other people in my head person. The natural leader could do that, but again, they don't have to do that. Their positive line for the natural leader is going to run over to the 3.
2, 2 goes to the 2.
Oh, to the 2. Yeah, you're right. It goes to the 2. So the natural leader then becomes the servant leader. We've heard that term, right? The helper. The leader who's the helper. See how this dovetails with things you've heard in other contexts? A really good leader knows that it's by service that they lead. They take on the best aspects of the 2, which is obviously what Jesus is teaching his disciples. Be greatest by being servant. I think he picked them because they had the potential to be, I don't know that they were all 8s, but they had the potential to be positive leaders, and positive leaders serve. Right? Okay, is that making sense? Okay, Daryl?
Just a quick question. I'm trying to understand why it couldn't flip. Why the green couldn't go in the other direction. And is it because that the natural tendency of your number means that if you took on characteristics of this particular tendency, they would always be negative or positive based on that? You know what I'm saying? Is there some logic or some experience?
Well, but here's what I would say is I could take on the positive aspects of a 7. The line indicates my direction of connection, in this case, of a negative, because it's only when I'm in a bad state of mind and spirit that I become the scattered 7 who's doing a lot of things and it's just all scattered without focus.
I got you.
But I could, again, if I'm in a good place, being in a good place will naturally lend that I take on 8, I can take on positive. It's not like I can't take on the positive aspects of a 7. I could. But the line indicates it's my line of kind of under stress, and if I'm falling apart, I tend to go there. And again, it's helpful because when I start realizing those kinds of behaviors, that could be a little signal saying you're probably too stressed. If you're scattered and just doing and filling up your time with trying to do more, maybe you need to slow down and kind of recenter yourself. You need to ask yourself, where's the stress? What's sabotaging what you can offer? Because now you've gotten stuck, right? So the line doesn't mean I can't go towards a 7 in a positive way. The line is just about, from a 5, it's a negative correlation, relationship,
Gotcha.
right? This is just natural tendencies. But that was Alan saying, you could read the positive aspects of any number and aspire to any of that behaviorally and start to do some of that behaviorally. Because if you're talking behavior, I can do the behavior of any number. You can act like a 5, which is very good in an academic setting, right? It's beneficial to act like a 5.
Yeah.
You know, so you can do the behaviors associated with any personality, but your motivation's not going to switch. Okay, so then here's all the arrows only as greens. So the opposites are the reds, right? So if you know what number you are, you can look at that and say, okay, where's the green going from me to what number? And then the other line is your direction of not so good, the stressed, I'm not doing well direction. Which requires you to become familiar with, well, what is that? What are those aspects of that other personality type? So that I become aware of how it is that I might start doing things, behaving when I'm not doing well.
In a general sense, the right arrow is the positive and the left is the negative. Is that right?
No, these are all positive.
These are all positive.
I think he's talking about the arrows that kind of go away. So
I mean, I meant left. I had them reversed.
yeah, so
Sorry.
I'm going here, I'm positive, going right is negative. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but
Is
I
that
don't
what
think
he's saying?
it's not always right and left, because on some of them, like on the 5, it's the left line, but on the 3, it's the right line. That's, you know, so I don't. You
Well, what that's saying is that the other end of the arrow, you know,
Yep. No, they-
if the positive arrow going from the challenger to the helper,
yeah.
the helper going to the challenger is a negative.
Right. So if you're a 4, the green is where you want to go, and the one green coming to you is your red direction. Right. In other words, you just the green. The way I've done it, and I could have done it the opposite, but I'm a positive person, right? I don't want to put all the negatives up here. I could have done it, or I thought about putting red and green arrows on each line. I thought, well, that's just gonna clutter the whole thing up. So you just look at your number and you say, I want to go wherever that green's telling me, and whatever green's coming towards me, that's the direction in which I go when I'm not as healthy, when I'm stressed, when I'm struggling. Then I tend to start going that way. But I'll always be whatever personality I am. Yeah, Linda?
I've memorized the directions. It's 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, 7. And so just by remembering that, I can go backwards and forwards. So it's 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, 7. And then you can go backwards and so forth.
Okay, so that's
That's the direction of positive,
Oh.
negative. That's a negative direction. So the 1 goes to the 4, 1, 4, 2 goes to the 2, goes toward the.
okay.
Anyway.
That may work. I mean, it
works.
it works. It may work for you if you can. Yeah, you see what?
Put it forward on that line.
Yeah, you see what Linda's saying is if you learn, she's doing the negative. So 1 to 4 to 2 to 8.
5, 7.
Okay, so she's saying, I just remember that sequence of numbers, and I know that's all the negatives,
And then just reverse it.
and reverse it's all the positives. I prefer to just know my number and don't worry about the others.
That's the only numbers I remember.
It's just a simple way, it's just a way that I can.
Yeah,
memorize
Yeah.
it.
Don't start that with simple.
Okay,
It's simpler to me than looking at the arrows and getting off.
right.
Linear maybe than.
So this is just, again, this is showing that this is not static. This is not pigeonholing you. There's actually movement. So again, for the 5, then I've got the blue arrows are the wings. I've got relationship to those 2 numbers. And then I've got a positive and a negative relationship with 2 other numbers, depending on how I'm doing. Here's the same thing for the 1, which, again, the wings are adjacent, but the other 2 are more across the circle from the 1, right? And so you would just say, what is that for me? That's the 4 other numbers that I have a pretty close connection with. In some way, my personality connects with certain aspects of those other ones. All right. Thoughts, questions? Okay. Last little bit. This is interesting. This is population distribution. You're dying to know, how does this fall out in the general population? Okay, I'm going to go through this. We can put on the resources that Wesley's made available, PDFs and things. I can put this chart where I derived this from. When I get done, we're going to talk about problems with the data, which I love these people because they admitted where the problems are with the data. I hate statistics that act like this is the way it is. No statistics are that clear. There's always error in the measurements, right? So I'm just saying all this up front. I want you to see how it falls out, but then we're going to talk about possible errors that have mixed into the numbers. Yeah, so this is not the way it is, but it is generally true. I don't know what the plus or minus to what degree. Nobody really knows that. But, okay, so most common.
Population of what?
General population.
Distribution.
Of the world?
The whole world?
Okay, well, I'll get to the end. This is out of about 190,000 tests.
Okay.
This is the sample size. So they've taken 100. We'll get to the problems even with that number. They're generating, okay, out of this sample size of taking like 190,000 test results, 16% of them basically turn out to be nines. That's the most frequent. That makes sense? That's what we're saying. The chart actually shows how many of those were men and how many of those were women, which is also an interesting factor. But again, it's prone to certain discrepancies. All right. Anyone want to?
Didn't agree with anything you said.
Yeah, obviously. Okay. Anyone want to guess on what number 2 is?
6.
Percentage?
Yeah. Because we're going from the most amount. So in the general population, based on this survey of the data, 16% of the people are nines. That's the most frequent.
Like 14.
I think we'd have a much better world if yeah.
Who has the power?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know that often the nines are the.
Yeah. Yeah, peacemakers probably don't have the power.
Yeah. Okay. So here we go. Did you have a question?
No.
Okay. So 6, the loyalists. And it's only, based on this data, it's only 0.1% off. So they're neck and neck, right? They're almost indistinguishable. Third, the individualists, right?
Does that vary by country?
Oh, this data, yeah, that'd be a good question. I'm sure it has to.
Probably skewed to the western.
Well, yeah, because they've got 190 test results off of people taking the test on the internet, right? These are some of the fallacies. And I don't think it's going to be like, well, actually 80% of the people, I mean, it's not off by that much. But yeah, a variable to me, a very reasonable variable would be culture.
Yeah.
Would culture, how does culture shape the way our personalities? I'm sure it does. Because you were growing up in that culture as a very small child, right? And this is something that's come out of childhood experiences. Okay, so individualists. Now come the enthusiasts, the 7s. Okay, so the performer at 10.5%. The perfectionist, that's often called the perfectionist. Some call it the reformer. Looks for justice and things to be right. 8%. Here comes the helpers. We would have thought they're way more, but we're thinking behavior. Obviously there's a lot of people in our world that are helping others, right? But this is about the motivation. Yeah. Let's hope that in terms of behavior, we'd say, well, 70% of the people are helpers. Yeah, I hope so. We need to be helping each other, right? Okay. And now the natural leaders, and then last, the investigators. All right. Okay. Okay. So here's the information on the data, and I'm going to point out some of the deficiencies. So you've got about 190,000 results. Accuracy issues, number one, it's self-reporting. There's no way to objectively find out. There's no way to, like, if you're self-reporting your blood type, then we could actually draw blood and find out if you were right. But we got no way. You self-report as a 4. That doesn't mean you are a 4. It means you took an online test and you said, hey, I'm a 4. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. So one of the things is this is all self-reported data. So that's why it's not going to be exact.
Did I answer the way I wanted
Yes.
to look, or did I answer?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And my level of self-understanding as I take the test is going to affect. Like, because I could be answering it the way I feel like it should be answered and not the way I really am internally. Maybe because I have trouble accepting what I really do. And so I come out a whole nother number, and then that gets added into the results. There's another 6, and I'm not a 6 at all. I just took the test and came out a 6 because I thought I should be a loyal person.
Yeah, I was telling Keith, there's a number I really like, and so when I take the test, that's what I am. People that know me tell me a different number.
You can account for people who take the test numerous times.
Well, and I don't know that. I don't know if they can verify that these are individual test results. Because I don't know if this is an aggregate of a number of websites. I doubt it. I imagine it is based off of a particular test. And maybe they did associate it with, a name, and so they can know it's not one person took it 7 times and has boosted that number.
I think it's funny though that 8 and 5 are the lowest, so the 8 is like, I don't have time to take this test. And the
Yes.
5 is like, well, somebody might find out who I am, I'm not taking this test.
Okay, so now we're down to the last point, reluctance and interest. And yes, I think you're exactly right. Often 8s may not even bother with such a test. I mean, they've got too many, they're leading things. I don't need time for this test, right? So there could actually be more 8s in the world than these test results indicate.
I need to take a test to know I'm great, I'm great.
Hey, quote Keith Russell, I'm an 8, I don't need to take that test.
Yeah. That's right.
That's not true.
So, someone else?
My mind's made up, don't confuse him with that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And the other point that they made, and they gave this as a for instance, because your 4s are some of your most introspective types. So 4s are more likely to say, oh, a test. I think I'd like to take that, right? And in contrast, the 8s are like, man, I don't need to take a test. So it may show more 4s in the world simply because 4s, when seeing such a thing, want to engage it because they want to know themselves. Right? So, and we could think about that in a lot of ways I suspect this is kind of generally true, but it could be off to some degree, and we don't know how much. Again, I don't think that it's off by 20% or something, but don't take it as hard and fast. There could be some other reasons why this is not totally accurate. But it's general. And it's interesting, with the male-female breakdown that I didn't put on here, it is often as you would expect. Of those who identify as helpers, twice often as not women over men. And the reverse is true down here. Twice often as not, it's men. Right? But then others are in parity. Men who identify, women who identify as a certain personality, pretty much equal. But sometimes there's a disparate figure. So we'll share that little chart, but I would like us to read it with the caveat of saying this is not God's truth about the matter. This is simply statistics, and a pretty small sample size with a lot of asterisks related to it. Okay.
Would you say that in the perfect world, we should like have characteristics of all numbers together? Like, for example, if you want to be whole or improve yourself as a human being,
Yes.
you should work in that. Because when I did my test, I remember that shoe numbers was exactly the same. It was like 23, 23. The other ones was 18, 17. But there's a number that I lack of totally, like 0, like there was 1. So should I work in that number, like when the results is very...
I don't know. I mean, maybe, but maybe not. Because I rate very low as a 6, and a 6 is a loyalist. But I think most people who know me, I'm pretty loyal. I don't like abandon anything. Sometimes I hang on too long. But the reason I'm low on 6 is another aspect of 6 is they're the loyalists and security minded. We went to Africa. I'm not very security minded, right? A lot of 6s go, I'd never go in that situation. We just throw caution to the wind. So when they're asking me on the test, I answer in the negative on everything about, do you have an emergency plan for every circumstance? No. I mean, like, not a little disagree, like, no, don't agree at all, right? So I come out this little atrophied 6. It doesn't mean I'm not a loyal person. It just means the questions they're asking, what they're searching for, and that aspect of it, I'm not security-minded at all, right? Does that make sense? So it doesn't mean just because you came out 0 that's like a huge problem in your life. It just may mean you're pretty sure that those motivational things are not a part of what motivates you. Doesn't mean, because they're not measuring your behavior, doesn't mean you're not doing something that would be helpful to do. It just means when it comes to motivation, that just doesn't motivate. Just like with me, I'm not motivated by security. Just not motivated by that at all. I used to think I was a 5-wing 6. I think now I'm a 5-wing 4. I really have more over in this side, but I certainly have the loyalty aspects a lot, right? So I'm related to both the 4 and the 6.
I think she's 99% helper being married to Keith.
Yeah, where's the saint number? Okay. All right, well, we're going to stop here. Thank you all, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.